there, my name is Giles. I'm a doctor currently in my F2 year. Today I'm going to be talking to you about applying for your F1 post. So you've probably sat your finals or you're about to sit your finals, and now it's that time of year when you have to rank your F1 jobs and where you're going to go.
You've been on my mind like it's payday. I know they ain't a fan, I don't care what they say.
And you probably got a lot of questions on, is there any strategies that I can use to be able to maximize the positions where I go to? The way how applying for Oriel works, you're going to have a score called your EPM. This is based on your exam results for medical school. That's 50%. And the other 50% comes from your SJT. I've got a video on the SJT and the link will be in the bio. Feel free to have a look at that video for top tips on how to succeed on your SJT. Now, from the 50% that comes from your medical school exams, 50% of that comes from your final year exams or the exams you sat last year. The other 50% is composed of all your exam results from the years prior to that. What I would say is, even if you've done well on your university exam results so far, don't be complacent, as your SJT could ruin things or it can make up for you not doing so well. Now, this score is combined and it will give you a certain score, and that will determine how competitive you are. There's publications that actually look at what is a sort of cutoff point or what's the average score that people who apply in certain deaneries are, and that can help you. This is based on last year's results or the years before, and can give you an idea of how competitive a region is, or if it's becoming more and more competitive, so you know where your chances best lie. In ranking your deaneries, it's pretty simple. There's two strategies. Strategy number one, which I advise and which most people should do, put the places where you want to go to first. If you want to go to London, make sure you put all the London places first. How the system works is it goes through your score and it goes through the places that you want to go to. Each place will have a certain cutoff. If your score meets the cutoff, you will get taken to that place. If option 1, you don't meet the cutoff, you go to option 2. Option 2 now becomes your option 1, and so on and so on. For example, you apply to London and your score doesn't quite meet any of the London deaneries. In the next deanery, what happens is your score meets the cutoff point. They're going to rank you to the number of places that are there in that deanery. Once again, the person with the highest score within that selection gets put at the top until they've reached and maxed out all the applicants they can take in that particular deanery. If you haven't quite made the cutoff point, you get shifted onto your next choice and the same process repeats. So the benefit of choosing your places that you want to go to first just means you will get slotted into the next best choice that your score is competitive and you meet the cutoff point for. Other things that you need to consider and think about before you pick your deaneries is, how big is that deanery? The bigger the deanery, the more traveling is going to be involved, which means you might need to relocate between F1 and F2. A smaller deanery might allow you to pick a single location where you might live at and be able to commute between F1 and F2. And also, not all jobs are always at the same hospital. It might also shift around within the same year. So those are things to think about. Now, this is just stage 1. Stage 2 could be also be picking the hospitals that you want to work in within that deanery. And then stage 3 will be ranking jobs. In some deaneries, they don't actually do stage 2, so you go straight to ranking jobs. Once again, when you're ranking jobs, always pick the jobs that you want to do first and the ones that you don't want to do at the bottom. And it also takes a similar approach where your score is ranked, and if you meet the cutoff point, you get your first choices, and so on and so on. Option number 2 is where you pick your choices that are maybe too ambitious and you don't rank all of them and you actually don't get a place. What happens is you get put into clearing while everybody else picks their choices, their jobs, and what's left over gets presented to you. This can work out in your favor where you might actually get a location which is favorable, for example, London, but you will get jobs that nobody wants to do and jobs that you might not want to do. This is a very risky option because you could end up in somewhere like Wales if you don't want to go to Wales. It just depends on how things pan out each year. So I would advise by going by option 1. Another top tip, make sure you get everything done within time. This is not a process where you can play with time. You need to meet deadlines. In fact, I would be early and before the deadline, because once the cutoff point is met, there is no extension. That's it. It's over. Other thing is, make sure you're aware of the areas you're going to, how they are socially, if they also meet, what you want to do. Jobs wise, when it comes to ranking jobs, I would advise to pick a medical job and a surgical job, at least one of each in the 2 years, as it will give you the correct skills that you need moving forward. You always need to know how to manage surgical patients and medical patients. If you want a chilled out third job in your first year, I would probably pick a specialty like ophthalmology or psychiatry. Basically, because in some of these specialties, you're not going to be doing on-calls as an F1. Whereas if you pick a specialty to do in F2, you're most likely going to be doing on-call. So how chilled it is might not be as much as it is as an F1. If you have any questions of things that I haven't quite answered that are more technical about the application process, feel free to leave a question below.
You've been on my mind like it's payday. I know they ain't a fan, I don't care what they